When you force employees back to the office, do you drive away your top talent? While some CEOs impose strict return-to-office mandates in the name of productivity, industry research tells a troubling story about the results. Today, we're joined by MIT SMR columnist Brian Elliott, whose provocative analysis of return-to-office policies became one of our most popular articles this year. Drawing from new data and real-world examples, Brian reveals why RTO mandates often backfire and what successful leaders are doing instead. In this conversation, he shares evidence-based strategies you can use to boost productivity and retention at the same time. Brian, you wrote an article for MIT SMR in March saying that RTO mandates did not deliver the expected productivity boost or financial performance gain. Does the latest research data back that up?
It does. It's been a really interesting few months because for a while there it seemed like this topic was calming down a bit. But what's happened since is things have gotten heated up again. So back in March when I wrote that article, one of the studies that I talked about was one from Mark Ma at the University of Pittsburgh that said that firms that put mandates in place showed no financial performance benefit over the ensuing year. It did have a knock-on effect on employee engagement. Since that, Nick Bloom had a study that came out in Nature that said that hybrid work is equally productive in the measurement they did with one company, but had a very positive effect on retention of employees relative to being full-time in the office. There's a study that came out of a combination of professors at Cornell and University of Utah. They did a similar set of analyses around financial performance and found that there was not even a stock market benefit. Some CEOs, I think, are expecting to get a pop. Wall Street rewarding them for getting tough on employees. It turns out that doesn't happen either. And then there's been studies that have come out of both McKinsey and BCG showing that firms that are more flexible actually result in higher revenue growth on top of it. It's a bit of the unitary CEO saying that this is the way I want us to work and not getting a reward for it from a financial perspective.
Top-down decision, little reward.
Top-down decision, little reward. To no reward, to negative consequences for their employees. Longer term, we'll see how this plays out.
Interesting data. Amazon recently imposed a strict return-to-office mandate for its employees that will take effect in January of 2025. Dell recently ordered its sales staff in the Austin area back to the office immediately.
Yeah.
Employees immediately started voicing their displeasure about these decisions online.
Yeah.
Why is there such a continuing disconnect between the CEOs and the employees on this issue?
Yeah, it's a shame that there is such a disconnect because we tend to polarize this into either everybody wanting full-time in the office or full-time remote when the vast majority of people want regular time together with their teams. We can come back to that about how you make that happen. But those disconnects are pretty fundamental sometimes. What you're seeing is some CEOs who are making decisions on the basis of what they think is right for an entire company, a large-scale organization that's actually distributed across multiple locations and functions around the globe. That person may be making that decision on the basis of what was right for them as they grew up and went through the system, what made them successful, and often forget that they may not look like what the rest of their employee base looks like in terms of, for example, caregiving responsibilities. But there are ways to do this that other firms have figured out how to do, which is don't put that nexus of decision-making at the executive level to make a unitary one-size-fits-all decision, but also don't leave it to individual chaos. Business units, functions, and teams are the right place to put that decision. If you get a team working together and talking about why we should come together, what types of activities and events are best done in person, you get a higher level of satisfaction, a higher level of engagement, according to research done by BCG, and you get people that feel like they are involved in the conversation, which means they feel like they are trusted to be part of finding the solution.
You also wrote that RTO mandates are a surefire way for companies to lose their star performers.
Yeah.
Why are the high performers likely to leave after these forced returns to office?
Yeah, so high performers, and this came out of work that was being done by a couple of different researchers as well as research out of Gartner. People that have been frequently promoted in their organization are more likely to leave. People who are more tenured in an organization, according to another academic study, are more likely to leave under a mandate. Part of the reason for that is they're marketable.
Sure.
These are the most talented people inside of an organization, right? And they're the ones that have the ability to find a job more easily because they are your top performers. But there's another reason behind this. Sometimes this is being done because senior executives say, look, I'm worried that there's a part of my population that's not working hard enough. I had one executive say to me, I don't know that they're walking the dog 4 hours a day, but I do know that if they're in the office, they can't be walking the dog 4 hours a day. What you're saying to those top performers is, I don't trust you. There's a causal relationship between commands and policies and the reactions that people who are actually top performers have. Upwork released a study this summer where 63% of the executives they polled who put mandates in place say that their firms disproportionately lost women. And in most cases, that had a knock-on effect on productivity of the firm because they couldn't replace those people fast enough.
If we fast forward to January 2026, Amazon has done this forced return to office.
Yeah.
What will they have gained and lost?
So they'll have lost a lot of their top talent. Will it be enough to impact Amazon? Time will tell. It's a very large company and it can do quite well. Even when they went to a 3-day-a-week mandate and they asked teams to co-locate with their organizations, I know of firms that started cherry-picking off people from Amazon, right? Because folks were looking for a place that felt like they weren't going to break their promises that were made to employees and looking for a new place to land. So there's going to be some attrition that happens over the course of this. But you're also going to see something that's a little bit more insidious, which is people trudging back into the office just to punch the clock. Literally, there are Amazon employees who have said this on online forums, right? Which is, I'm just going to punch the clock until I find another role at another company. And maybe that takes them a year. Maybe their performance flags enough that Amazon gets rid of them. But that lag of performance is nothing that anyone should welcome and find, attractive in an organization. The other thing that's going to happen is non-compliance, right? If you look at some of the other research out there, even when a policy is put in place, you still end up with a sub 50% compliance perspective. And we all get the reason why. A mandate and a policy from the top results in a conversation that every manager dreads, which is when those things come out, there's 2 weeks of extremely low productivity while you sort out with your boss, how does this apply to me? Will you actually crack down on people is a key question. You may crack down on some people in some parts of the organization that you're trying to shrink, but you're going to let it go with people that are your top performers in key roles that you need to show more flexibility to because you can't afford to lose them. At this point, you're not an executive making this decision without realizing that some people are going to leave on a voluntary basis. And this is, in fact, in some ways, a soft layoff. About a third of HR executives who were polled earlier this year said that mandates are a form of soft layoff.
Culture change is some of the hardest work that leaders have to do. Yeah. What first steps do you suggest for a leader who wants to help their organization move from a culture of measuring productivity via FaceTime to measuring productivity via outcomes?
Yeah, the first thing is you need to know what outcomes you're trying to measure, right? So I've actually seen this in organizations. It's really hard. There's an executive wrestling match that needs to happen, which is what goals are most important to us? What are our priorities? How are we going to articulate these in measurable ways? If you put people in a position where what you're saying to them or signaling to them is, what matters to me is whether or not you're showing up, your activity. How many hours a day are you in the office? How many hours a day is your green light on showing that you're active online? Then people will perform to that metric, right? That means you're not getting them focused on the outcomes. And the reason they're doing that is you're not giving them the trust to actually, deliver against the problems that they're facing. That's a doom loop, right? I'm monitoring your activity, therefore you don't trust me, therefore I'm not going to focus on the root cause at hand, I'm just going to sort of punch the clock, therefore performance degrades. And it keeps going around and around. If instead you can have that conversation about what are the goals and outcomes, how do we actually measure people at the team level against that, and in some cases to the individual level against that? How do we hold people accountable to performance, not to activity? What you're saying is, I trust you to hit the outcome. I'm going to give you more degrees of freedom and latitude to get there, but I expect you to actually perform, right? That's really important in terms of lifting their levels of engagement. You're boosting trust. They actually perform better. That aligns with the organization's goals overall, and it's a positive boom loop instead of a negative doom loop.
And many of us feel that during the pandemic, we proved it could work.
Yes.
Measuring to outcomes.
Yeah, and a lot of organizations have actually made the investment. So I've actually worked with and talked with a number of organizations that have said, hey, this has shown a light on the fact that we weren't doing this. We were reliant on management by walking around, which is honestly the weakest form of management for performance, right? I need to actually measure people on the basis of performance. It takes work and effort to put these systems in place.
So, Brian, if I'm a leader, what is the one key takeaway you want me to walk away with from your research on RTO mandates?
The number one question that I ask leaders when they're contemplating an RTO mandate or getting more stringent about an RTO mandate is, what problem are you trying to solve? And let's get specific about what the problem is. And if the problem is innovation or the problem is productivity, can we define what we mean by innovation or productivity? Can we find ways to engage people in what the solution to that might be? Because an RTO mandate simply takes off the table 1 degree of freedom in how you solve it, right? Right. You got to figure out from a systemic perspective what's getting in your way. If it's a lack of innovation, are you listening closely enough to the field, right? Are you understanding what your customers are saying? Are you understanding what your competitors are doing? Are you allowing the voices of dissent in your own organization to bring forward heretical ideas? Trust and psychological safety are a bigger deal when it comes to innovation than whether or not people are co-located. If it's productivity, where's the lack of productivity? How do we define it? What might be getting in people's way? If our sales teams are slowing down, do they have too big a bag of tricks? Have we done insufficient training? Have we not gotten the junior staff skilled up and capable? Those are more productive conversations because not only are you thinking about the answers yourself, but you have to involve your people in the conversation. Command and control is not going to work very well, especially as we enter a world powered by AI and other capabilities. You can't keep up. You can't command and control your way out of the future.
Brian, thanks so much.
Lori, thank you. It's been great chatting with you.
We hope you found Brian's insights valuable. For a deeper dive, check out his full article, Return to Office Mandates, How to Lose Your Best Performers, on MIT Sloan Management Review's website. The link is in the description below. And if you're interested in learning more from our authors, explore our curated playlist of interviews. Thanks for watching.